2020 by the time you're watching this video, and I recently picked up this new machine, which is the 2015 15-inch Retina MacBook Pro. And if you're wondering why, stay tuned till the end, and I will try to tell you if you too should get the 15-inch 2015 Retina MacBook Pro in 2020. So before getting into the particulars, I just want to put it out there that the model that I have is the base variant with the Core i7 clocked at 2.2 GHz. It's the Haswell series of chips. And since it's the base variant, there is no dedicated AMD GPU. It's the Intel Iris Pro 1.5 GB graphics on board with 16 GB of RAM and 256 GB of SSD storage. Now, let me begin why I bought this particular laptop with point number one, which is the performance still holds up really well in 2019. Now, I'm not going to go deep into numbers or synthetic benchmarks because you will find that all over the place, but the general performance, especially for the kind of work that I do, which is mainly editing videos and typing out scripts and articles, for that purpose, the 15-inch 2015 MacBook Pro does a fantastic job. Now, despite the fact that there is no dedicated GPU, it handles 1080p 60 FPS footage with ease. I have edited videos with durations that have exceeded the 20-minute mark, and there was no lag or frame drop within playback on the timeline on Final Cut Pro, and that's fantastic. To give some context, I switched from moderately powerful Windows laptop and pretty recent as well. I had an MSI laptop with a 9th gen hexa-core Core i7, 8 gigs of RAM, a GTX 1650 Max-Q GPU, and when I edited on Premiere Pro, what I observed were there were a lot of frame drops and lag on the timeline while I was editing, which took away from the experience. And despite the fact that this particular MacBook Pro has much inferior specifications, but the macOS optimization just makes it run absolutely like butter. And that's one thing I really appreciate about this machine. And that brings me to the fact that including video editing, more generic tasks like web browsing or text editing is absolutely a breeze. This thing can handle it with ease without breaking a sweat, and that was it about performance. If I have to talk about render times, a 1080p 60 fps video of about 20-minute duration was rendered in just about 4 minutes, which is incredible given that my previous laptop with Premiere Pro would take about 17 to 18 minutes to render the same edit. And that really speaks volumes about how well Final Cut Pro is optimized on Mac. Now that the performance is out of the way, let's move on to point number two, which is the abundance of ports on this particular machine. Now, all of you are aware of the fact that from 2016, Apple got rid of all the conventional ports in favor of Thunderbolt 3 USB Type-C, which means if you have USB Type-A accessories, you will have to use dongles to plug all of them into your laptop, and that was slightly a bummer for me because you're already spending a lot of money on the laptop itself, and then you'll have to shell out more to get dongles for multiple devices. Whereas this particular machine has all your conventional ports. You have two Thunderbolt 2 ports, you have an HDMI port, you have two USB 3.0 A ports, you have the headphone jack, and most importantly for me, you even have the SD card reader. And if you're someone who shoots on a camera, or you're a content creator, you're a photographer, you know the importance of having an SD card slot, and this one has it, which is fantastic. And of course, not to forget, you get the MagSafe 2 charger, which was the beloved connector that all the Apple users all over the globe really liked, and Apple unfortunately got rid of. So all your conventional legacy ports are present on this device, which makes it a really good option even in 2019 or even 2020 as we're talking now. Moving on from ports, we have another I/O component, which is the keyboard. Now, the keyboard on the recent MacBooks from 2016 onwards have been using the butterfly mechanism, which has faced a lot of flack for the fact that the keys get jammed and then you have repeating letters when you're typing, or your keyboard just stops functioning. And this particular model that I have here has the scissor switch keys, which are fantastic. The key travel is great on them. There's absolutely no issues with keys getting jammed. In fact, the latest 16-inch 2019 MacBook Pro from Apple has the same mechanism, the same keyboard as the one on the 2015, which speaks volumes about how good this particular keyboard is. And along with the keyboard, the trackpad too is fantastic. This is the one with the Force Touch trackpad. The gestures are fantastic. Switching from Windows, there are a couple of good gestures on Windows as well, but none of the trackpads that I've used have been able to match up to the one on this particular laptop. Moving on, one thing I really want to highlight is the smoothness or the fluidity that macOS offers is next to none. I've been a Windows user for the past 12 to 15 years, and the fluidity that I have been experiencing on the Mac is actually fantastic. Now, I did expect to encounter some software or some applications that may not be present on Mac, which I was using on Windows for a long time, but that's not the case. I've been pretty happy with the switch. This is my first MacBook Pro, by the way, my first experience with Mac, and I am happy to report that my switch has been very smooth for now, except for some issues that I've faced with file transfer or supported file formats. For example, if I plug in an Android device through USB, I cannot copy paste files directly onto the memory. So these are some quirks that really kind of hinder the experience, but once you get used to the Apple ecosystem, which I will talk about as my next point, you will realize that the Mac is actually pretty much similar or easy to use as Windows is. I mean, if you're switching from Windows and this is going to be your first Mac, fret not, the switch is going to be really smooth. Now, the next point, as I mentioned, is about the entire Apple ecosystem. Now, I recently got the iPhone 11 Pro, and I also have the AirPods, and I shoot a lot of videos and photos, of course, with the iPhone 11 Pro because the cameras are phenomenal. And with Windows, I always had this issue where I couldn't directly copy all my video files from the iPhone onto the laptop. Whereas now with AirDrop, it's just magical. I mean, a lot of video files that I shoot can now, in a matter of few minutes, just get transferred from my phone onto the laptop, which is very convenient. While you're editing, it saves a lot of time when compared to copying them to, let's say, the cloud and then downloading it back on the laptop. So that's a really nice advantage. And of course, with the AirPods, you get the seamless connectivity with your iPhone as well as the MacBook. And handoff is again really helpful. And of course, one more thing that I really like is that the iMessages that I get on my phone, I can reply to them from the MacBook itself, and I can even make calls or pick up FaceTime calls from the MacBook itself, which actually saves me a lot of time and effort trying to reach out to my phone every time I want to make a call or reply to a message, which is great. The entire integration of all the Apple devices is really nice. Now, the major point why I actually ended up getting a 2015 15-inch MacBook Pro is the price. Now, this particular machine is 5 years old, so the value has depreciated Pretty well. In fact, actually, MacBooks retain a lot of their resale value, and this one didn't really come cheap. I say in India, and Apple products here are pretty much expensive compared to the Western countries. And if you're in the US, you can grab this particular variant with even a dedicated GPU, in fact, for much lesser than $1,000, which I feel is great value for this machine, especially when you compare it with the more recent MacBooks, which exceed $2,500. So if you're a student or you're just getting into creativity or content creation, I feel this particular laptop for all purposes is a great machine. If I have to include some miscellaneous things, the display on this MacBook is fantastic. It's a Retina panel with a 2K resolution, and I was actually blown away when I saw the display for the first time. The quality is actually excellent. The viewing angles are great. If you watch a lot of movies or videos, then this particular MacBook is going to be really nice. And I really like the build quality and the design. This is also the last MacBook to have the glowing Apple logo, so if you're into that, then you'll be really happy with this one. And the metallic build, the aluminum build, the aluminum chassis is really nice to hold. It's not all that heavy, it's about 2 kilograms, which is manageable, especially given the horsepower that it packs. And the battery life lasts surprisingly long. I could manage about 7 to 8 hours of usage, light to moderate usage, web browsing, typing, etc. From a single charge, and it charges up pretty soon. I mean, in less than 2 hours, which is fantastic. So that's pretty much it for the overview of the 2015 15-inch Retina MacBook Pro in 2020. Now to answer the question whether you should get it or not, if you edit videos 1080p, to be specific, you can get around to edit 4K videos as well, but depending on what the duration is and depending on what effects or transitions you add, you might face some difficulty. So if you want to be a little safe, you are better off getting the model with the dedicated graphics. If I have to speak about this particular base variant, I am very satisfied with it. Even in 2020, 5 years down the line, this machine has been holding up really well. I'm going to be using it for a couple of more years to see how well it lasts. And let us know if you are still using a 2015 15-inch MacBook Pro in the comment section below, and how your experience with it has been. If you like this video, then make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more such content. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you around.